everybody. So I'm going to cover some mold cutting for candles and such. I think I did one a while back, but I only had a couple different styles of cutting a mold. So now I want to focus on the styles I have now. So for instance, I have a mold here. This is one of my fairy molds that I cut down two sides like this. I kept the main fairy here and cut it down to either side of her. I also have a square one where I did similar, but I cut it down two different corners for stability. So this has worked pretty good. Detail wise, the details in these flowers and mushrooms gets caught in here, so it ends up not coming, the wax ends up breaking off because it's such a fragile section. So I would have been better off cutting it like these Lyson molds that I have that I bought from Lyson. These are very detailed molds and I like them a lot. What they've done is they've cut down one whole side and halfway through the center of the bottom. So when you unmold, all of your detail stays behind. This one here is an old bee skep style. It's really nice. I like it. So I have found that I'm better off cutting a lot of my molds that way. Some molds I have, like this little beehive skep here. This is my owl mold. It's got 3 little owls on a log. This one here I still keep cut down the side because I found it for this mold anyways, that is still the best because it's a weird shape. The candle itself, not the mold. The mold itself is, yes, a weird shape, but the candle itself, it's in that like a half moon style. So that one there, I'm still better off splitting it down the sides. My angel, I have a angel mold. Now for this one, cutting it down one side wasn't such a good idea for this one for me. So what I've done here is I've done like I have with my fairy molds, and I've split it in half so that the pieces fall out evenly. So I pull it out as one piece. Now this style mold here, I'm actually, when I remake these molds, I'm actually going to make this into a 2-piece mold so I am not damaging the candle itself. I'm also going to use a slightly harder mold. I'm going to create a slightly harder mold because this is a soft one, and this thing, it just, I don't know, I don't care for it as much. Now you're probably thinking, well, you got all these different color ones, what's the difference? The difference is the hardness. The Lyson molds are soft but still hard. This is one of the floppier molds I have, whereas this one here is a hard mold. Another mold I have, now these ones I really like because of the fact that you don't have to cut them. The biggest thing you have to do is figure out where you want to put your wick through and create your wick hole. Now this one here, because this only works with candles that don't have a lot of fine detail. So this is a bee. Pour the wax in, let it harden, cool and harden, and then I just pull the candle straight up out. Love it. Simple, easy. Cannot wait to recreate these. And then the most complex, or more complex mold I have, it is a mother angel holding her baby. This is a true 2-piece mold. No cutting involved. It's created in 2 pieces while you're making the mold itself. So it's 1/2 of of the candle. So if you tried to do this in any other style, any of these other style molds, you would lose all your detail work, would get damaged. Or at least in my experience, it would get damaged. So now I have my different styles of cutting. You got to learn too for yourself of how you want to cut your mold. You might end up making or buying several of the same mold, but you might cut every last one of them differently until you find a style of cutting that works for you. So here I have a brand new mold. One thing I didn't like was, or I don't like when I'm buying molds online, is a lot of them don't tell you how hard they are. So they just tell you, it's this style mold, it's good for temperatures up to this. So right here I have a new owl. New little owl mold, very similar to this one that I have. And so I'm going to cut it, because this mold is very similar, I'm going to cut it the exact same way. So as you can see in this style mold, they have divots of where the line was made. So I'm going to cut this one the same way down this side in the back. And one of these little blades, where is my, there it is. So you can do it with a box cutter if you want to, but I prefer these project knife blades. Get them at most art stores, stuff like that. Art sections of most stores. They're a razor blade, and the way they're shaped, you can cut through this stuff very easily. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go for where I want my wick, and that generally always center. Generally, not always. As you can see, this is slightly off. And now I'm going to bring my blade right along, cutting the whole way to the bottom of the bottom. And then bring it right up the side. So be very, 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 very careful of this. Do your best not to do it away from yourself, and of course away from people. When you're doing this, you don't want to slip and stab someone or stab yourself. Always try to work away from yourself. And now I have a cut mold that's ready to go. And generally, what you're looking for with your start hole down here, your wick will ride right into the bottom of this crevice right here. So this wick, my wick for this, will actually come into here and rest when I close up around it. So that's one mold down. Now I have an odd shaped one here. Careful with your blades. These are going to be getting new bags. I prefer big sandwich bags for storing my molds, for keeping them clean. Which reminds me, I gotta get some more mold cleaner. But anyway, so the reason I'm saying this is an odd shape, because not only is it more ovalish, but there's a lot of detail in here, and there's also, this is a little house, like a little cottage, and there's a chimney in it. The chimney, I'm pretty sure I can get to come out fairly easily, but I'm going to have to experiment with it and work with it. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one, and I'm going to try to make it so the part that hinges, so to speak, will be in the less detailed work, because I want to work the details slowly off the wax. and it also gives me more, because this is thicker over here, it also gives me more, gives the wax more time to cool down, so it slows the cooling process. This mold I really like because they actually have a rim here built into the mold, whereas these ones just automatically go flat. So this here gives me a nicer setting, if you will. You know, when you put it on a table or counter, it gives it a nicer look. So my more detailed work is over here. So I'm going to go into here, make sure my blade is pointed in the proper position, my fingers are out of the way. Highest point in this mold is there. Okay. I've come through. I'm going to flip it around just so I can work up and away from myself. Actually, I'm actually going to switch this around like this and put it back down through my original hole. Okay, now I can cut more away from myself. There. And I can open it up as I work now. Whereas beforehand, I wasn't really working properly. Let me move some of this crap out of the way. There we go. I'm gonna wash these already. But anyway, so now we have a nice cut mold. It'll open up really nice and easy, and as you can see, where the detailed work is, it's a lot thicker. Or for instance, this one's got a weird shaped groove here. Quote unquote weird. So that's why this looks a lot thicker. But there's some nice detailing work in the roof itself, so that'll come out real nice. I'm going to wash this mold, and I'm actually going to work to duplicate it before I use it for wax. Now here's an interesting one. For all those wondering, that's a generator in the background. We all live off-grid around here. So we do what we can for electricity that we can actually afford. So right here, this is a very detailed bell. And I'm going to do the same thing. Now we have a nice bell. That'll pop out really nice. And I'm going to have to get some rubber bands here to make it so I can hold these together so that the wax doesn't pour out of them. So yeah. A lot of fun. There's a million and one different styles of doing it. This is just how I've gone to doing it because I found that it works better for me. Cut your molds how you want to cut them. But I can tell you that unless you're buying the two-piece molds, the majority of the molds you buy are going to be uncut. One of the big things I found from buying these online and even from distributors is the comments that people leave about the molds. They sit there and complain because the mold wasn't cut for them already. They're not going to be. How they're making these molds versus how I make my molds is completely different. For instance, this mold was a single piece when I got it. This one here, being an angel, it's very detailed. They generally have something that blows up. It looks like it. Boom. And then after the mold is hardened, you know, they just let the air out. Or at least that's one old style of doing it. They let the air out, they pull out their, basically the balloon, and there's the mold. That was one style, and I think that was originally made for creating molds for toys, but it transferred over. Some people, like how I do it, is, you know, you get your figurine that you made yourself or you bought or whatever, and you set it in a dish, and then you pour your mold around it, you pull everything out, and then you very carefully cut your figurine back out. Some people just tear them down the side. I like to carefully cut them, but that's because I like clean lines for sealing everything together. Yeah, that's mold cutting as I have it right now. Like I said, some molds you don't need to cut, like this one here. It's very little detailed work, so it just pops right out. A lot like a taper candle, stuff like that. Votive candle, I think it's called. You know, the little round ones anyways, are kind of yay tall. Those ones there just pop out of the molds. You don't need to cut your mold. Those ones generally you can find a lot of steel molds made out of steel for those, because they're so easy to just pop out. But I like really detailed candles, so I end up using these molds and cutting them myself. But you learn a lot about your candle if you end up cutting your old mold, because you're like, oh, that didn't work, look, the detail I lost in that because of doing that. Or like, for instance, these angels that I do here, I got one that I cut wrong, and or at least I felt I cut it wrong, and the wings would get damaged every time I took it out. So I bought a new mold, cut it differently, and it worked a heck of a lot better. But I still feel that even how I cut it, it should be a two-piece mold, so I'm going to redo the entire mold. So, there's that. Like I said, everybody cuts their molds differently. There's no set way in stone that I know of. No two molds, no two styles of mold are going to be the same. So, have a good one. Hopefully that gives you some ideas. Happy candle making.